Welcome back, everybody, to another episode of On the Fly. This is Sean Lacey, and I am flying solo tonight on our pre-Thanksgiving episode. Although I'm by myself, I have a great guest this evening. It's someone that I've known for the past few years in the real estate and property management space. So our special guest of this evening is Kaitlin Moore, and Kaitlin is based in the Akron area. She grew up in Akron and now has worked for various apartment complexes and management companies throughout the Akron area. And we bonded and started working together probably 3 or 4 years ago when we were working at 22 Exchange Apartments and practically running the property ourselves. So we'll dive into that a little bit more. But Kaitlin has been an excellent person to know and to be friends with because we have a similar mindset in terms of managing properties and managing real estate, and ultimately the premise of how to take care of a tenant, because in essence, a tenant is a customer and it is our job to serve our customer. So Kaitlin, do you mind giving our listeners a little bit of a background about yourself?
Yeah, thank you. Thank you so much for the introduction. Thanks for having me. My name is Kaitlin Moore. I am currently the property manager of a 308 unit apartment complex in Copley. I am soon to be a business owner starter. Don't like to get too many details too soon. I always like to have a solid foundation before I really announce something, but good things in the works. Overall, I am someone who, the basis of the podcast, finances. I am someone very curious and interested in finances. Love the subject, love to learn about it. And just overall, I am someone whose goal is to just live a simplified, balanced life.
Absolutely, great introduction, and a simplified, balanced life indeed. And
Yeah.
it's great to think about how you and Deontay and both of your plan for the future and how that involves finances, how that involves investments and real estate as well. So do you mind kind of going into that a little bit deeper and thinking like what's your 5-10 year vision for you and Deontay?
Yeah, definitely. So currently I am, like I said, property management. Not something that I necessarily saw myself getting into when I was younger, but the longer I'm in it and the more I learn about the field, I fall in love with it every day. It's definitely, it's customer service. So definitely ups and downs, but that's with any job. So between that love and then my husband, Deontay, he is in car sales. We both have the goal to own rental properties as, passive income, because ultimately the goal isn't to work for the rest of our lives. I know, our parents definitely grew up with that mindset. It's a very accepted societal mindset, I would say. But my goal is not to work until I'm, 50, 60 years old. So I would like a lot of that work to be done in the background. So my 5 to 10 year goal, stay in property management just so I can learn as much as I can at their expense because, schooling is definitely expensive. And if you can learn by experience, that is such a good way to learn. So definitely stay, with my property management company, continue learning, but work on owning the rental properties on the side, building my business, building that clientele, the reliable vendors and everything that goes into just a functional, well-maintained property management. And then just, continue to build, automate, and then step back and have that passive income in rental properties.
I agree completely. And it's kind of an idea of breaking the traditional mold of working until you're 60, 65, even 70, and
Yeah.
then spending your last 15, 20 years when you're not as physically capable and you can't really do as much, but all the money that you've saved up and invested. So I agree. I think a lot of our listeners agree, and I know both of my co-founders here at FLI do as well, that early retirement is 100% the goal. And if we can grind and bust our ass now when we're in our younger years, things get a lot easier. And it's that delayed gratification mindset. And one thing you mentioned too is schooling being expensive. and the opportunity to learn on someone else's dime. And I think that is absolutely huge, because if you have an idea of where you want to be in the type, whether it's the type of business, type of industry, if you want to start something for yourself, there's a lot of trial and error, a lot of mistakes that are made. And
Yes.
with those mistakes, they can be expensive. So it's good to have those mistakes be on someone else's dime, as kind of bad as that sounds, but it's true, because we all make mistakes, whether we work for a Fortune 500 company or we work for ourselves. They're expensive, and a Fortune 500 company or even a large property management company can absorb those mistakes a lot easier than a mom and pop operation. So diving into mistakes a little bit, from your experiences in property management, whether it's at this property or previous properties, what are some things that you've learned, whether it's from managers or from the company, of what not to do in the industry?
Ooh, that's a really, really good question. First things first is don't take advantage of your customer. I think that is like one of the biggest things that I've seen done. And just it creates a bad reputation, it kind of puts that name out that, you guys are all about money, or, you really don't care about the resident, or in my case, it's residents, but you don't really care about the customer. It kind of just puts a bad taste in anyone's mouth. So I would say stay fair to the customer. You never want to undercut yourself. Obviously, at the end of the day, there are operating costs and, so many things that go into running a property management company that as the, resident again, but customer, they don't necessarily see. So sometimes even just explaining that, it helps them have a better understanding of, hey, this isn't us trying to take advantage of you. This is why we have to do this, or this is why our product is at the certain price. I would say just, stay as fair and honest to the customer, because at the end of the day, people know when you're trying to, be a salesman, or people know when you're just not genuine. It hits different, and it's just a different tone, and people can see through it. They really can. So definitely just don't take advantage of the customer, number one. One of the others would probably be just stay consistent. What you do for one person, do for everybody, because that is going to save you so much trouble in the long run. I had an instance where so we have, lease breaks where you get out of your lease early or whatever. And we had a situation where the person that was breaking their lease was technically a preferred employer. So if you're a preferred employer at our property, it's, an employer like Goodyear, Smuckers, things like that, that you get certain perks. So one of the perks is if you break your lease, you don't have to pay a buyout fee, which typically is like a 2-month buyout fee if you want to get out of your lease, which a lot of people, if you're buying a house or anything like for that reason, it's a nice option. So the girls in my office knew that they were a preferred employer, but did not check the lease. So the lease did not have the additional provision in it stating that he was a preferred employer. I made the decision, he already knew about the preferred employer thing. He had no intentions of paying the buyout, all that. And I made the ultimate decision. I was like, you know what, this one time, you already know where this is going. So this one time I'm going to make this decision and just say, it's okay. He's a preferred employer, no buyout, even though it wasn't in his lease. So fast forward 2 or 3 months. His friend or fellow coworker that also worked at the same company now wants to break his lease. And not knowing that they were friends at the time, I said, no, unfortunately, it's not in your lease. We're not able to do that, because he brought up the preferred employer to us. So I was like, no, unfortunately, we can't do that. Well, my friend, and referred to said resident that I made that, decision I shouldn't have done, but I did. And so that it put me in a situation where I was just ultimately like, oh, I wish I would have just went back and said no to the original one, let him know that it wasn't his lease. So long story short, or a long-winded story, do the same for everybody. What you do for one person, do it across the board. It will save your butt. It will save so much, headache in the long run. So those are my two big main things I would say that I've learned so far.
And I think both of those are excellent points. And I want to reiterate the first point. And the big thing on that is just providing value to your customers, your residents, your clients, whatever. And it's a gut check type situation or decision where you have to make the best decision for that specific person in that specific situation. And it kind of ties into, I guess, treating everybody the same. And that's something that it can vary depending on the industry you're in. It can vary depending on the type of properties you own, because like in your case, owning or working for a large apartment complex with many residents on the same property, word travels like you just talked about. So if you have to be much more cautious about being fair and making the same choices for everybody, versus if you have a bunch of single family homes that are all spread out and the tenants don't know each other, you can kind of treat that on a case by case basis and make special considerations for certain people and other considerations for others, and they won't find out type of thing. So that's the big thing to understand, but also be cautious of depending on the type of situation you're in.
Definitely. No, I definitely agree. Because yeah, that is one thing. And not to get too in depth with, like pricing or anything like that, specifics for my property. But that is a big thing, word travels. So I have residents, how my property is laid out. I have 14 buildings, all exactly the same. Every 101 is going to be, a 2-bedroom, vice versa. I have 1, 2s, and 3s. So if your neighbors and you have the same unit as someone else in a different building, and you just happen to be discussing your prices, when management took over, there was such an increase in the price. Whereas, if you were in a 2-bedroom, you'd be paying, $1,300. If you were in a 3-bedroom, you're at $1,500. Those are made up numbers, by the way. But, it was across the board. Everyone kind of paid the same amount. Well, the new, my management company, we took over the property about 2 years ago. And they do rent based on something called Rent Max or Rent Maximizer, which is, a software system that accounts for everything from, the market, how prices is going in the market, to vacancies, to other properties' occupancies, just all types of things are factored into when they make the price. And because of that software system, it has varied people's rents so much that I have somebody in, this 2-bedroom paying $1,400. Well, because the same exact 2-bedroom maybe, moved in at a different month or renewed, their lease was up at a different time of the year, they can be paying as far as, $400 to $500 difference. And that, plays into the word travel. So if I'm in, the same exact unit that you're living in, and you're paying $300 less than I am, I'm going to feel some type of way about that. And it's human nature. Same product, same everything. Just, you happen to move in February when it was less ideal to move, and I needed to move in summer. So those are some of the issues that I deal with at my property that I see are an ongoing problem, because not only, do neighbors talk, we have a website online. My residents at any point could go online to check what our current prices are. And again, say you moved in the summer when, I only had 2 available units, or whatever the reason was for that price to be higher, you could be paying $400 to $500 more than your neighbor in the exact same unit. And so that it's just, the word of mouth spreads. And so that's how you lose residents that you shouldn't lose.
Mm-hmm. And that's some supply and demand economics right there, which I guess we understand having worked in the industry, but people who don't or haven't worked in it or just renting apartments, they may not understand. So something that you kind of touched on there that I'm interested to hear more about, in terms of the technology that you guys use on the property that you're familiar with, what does that look like?
So like software systems of stuff
Yep.
like that. Perfect. So we use, like I said, I mentioned a little bit, it's called a software system called Rent Maximizer. That is how we get our pricing, and we're a little atypical, I would say, from the standard property management company. We pull our pricing daily. So yeah, so it was very new to me. I was, from 22, the first property that I worked at. It was just a set price, 4 bedroom, or yeah, we worked 4 bedroom was 400, 3 bedroom was 5, 2 bedroom was 6 type of deal. And, when the new management company came in, they raised it a little bit, it was the new set prices, but everything was set. So for us, it changes daily. And that was a huge change for me and a huge adjustment that I had to get used to, because it even took me a little while to understand and explain it, because I have these people and I'm like, yeah, well, this is the price today. And they're like, what do you mean today? And I, as the, lease, or as the assistant at the time, but me as the, leasing agent on the phone, I feel uncomfortable because I was like, wait, yeah, you're right. What do I mean by the day? And how the market factored in, and everything from what's going on with like the housing market to interest rates, and just all these different numbers that really factored into it, that it took me, a couple months to really fully grasp and understand and be able to explain to other people. So I kind of got the hang of it, but at first it was really hard to get people on the same level to understand, like, hey, it's a software system, prices change daily, this could fluctuate it. Sometimes it can be a good thing because it'll go down. You just kind of like do all the hard sells to try to like make it not sound as sketchy as it did. So that's one of the software systems that we use. Computer wise, we use a system called Yardi, which is great. It's definitely a large scale management software system. I have 308 units, so about 380 residents total. And it's capable of, keeping track of all their information. It has definitely a lot of different reports you can pull. Very, very useful. And then other than that, we are actually very like old school with it. I still have like a make ready board for my maintenance guys, vendor schedule, stuff like that. So I definitely, again, with the whole, simplified lifestyle, I definitely put that into my work as well. So as simple as I can do it. All of my maintenance men are over the age of 50. So technology for maintenance is not the biggest or the greatest thing ever. So I just try to keep it very simple and just try to run it as best as we can.
And I imagine too, using like a spreadsheet to manage 380 residents would not be ideal. So it's good that there's Yardi and some form of technology backbone for that. And then the daily changing rent prices is very interesting. And they have a similar thing for Airbnbs and short-term rentals, but that's kind of like hotel bookings, not necessarily booking like
Right.
a year-long lease or 2-year-long lease. So that's an interesting way, I guess, challenge even when you're selling an apartment, to say, hey, listen, this is our price today. It could be more tomorrow, it could be less. You have to roll the dice to see which price you're going to get. So it's almost like gambling when you're signing an apartment lease, which is kind of sweet.
Exactly. And it definitely can be a good thing, specifically when we have like less availability. So, it's good when I only have 2 or 3 vacants, and it's easier to explain like, well, hey, it's going to be a little bit higher, but it's because of 308 units, I only have 1 available of this style or of this, type of apartment. Not as ideal when I have 25 available apartments. It's a little bit harder of a sell to tell someone like, hey, the price just is what it is. And they're like, well, you have 7 of them. So I'm just going to look around a little bit and then come back, because I know at least 1 of the 7 is going to be there. But it definitely was something to get used to. Not the most favorite thing about my job, I would say, but just I've been doing it for almost 2 years now. So it's just something I kind of got accustomed to.
Okay, yeah, I can see the challenges and where they lie. So it's cool that you're gotten used to it. So
Sure.
kind of switching gears a little bit here, let's dive into your financial beginnings and your kind of your financial why. So I'll explain this a little bit better, but how did you initially gain your financial knowledge, and what did that look like, and why do you believe in financial independence and retiring early?
Yeah, also another good question. So a little bit just about my background, growing up in finances, stuff like that. I definitely growing up, I think I thought I had decent money because of the friends that I had who had a lot less money than me. And then the older I got, I started meeting people that actually had money. And I realized that growing up, we were a little shorter on the stick than most people. But, we made it work, had a good childhood, no complaints on my end. But I definitely grew up with parents that had like a lack mentality, kind of like a deficit mindset, I would say. There was never enough. We could never afford it. Just things of that nature. So I would say growing up, I almost had like a fear of finances because, I knew there was never going to be enough money. So that was kind of that, mindset I had. And it didn't really get to a point until I unexpectedly lost a job so backtrack a little bit. I had always worked like minimum wage jobs. So I would work like 2 to 4 minimum wage jobs just to make, ends meet. Cause that's what I know. That's what, I saw my parents do. And that's just, kind of where I grew up, the norm. So for the first time ever, I had a friend. She had this really great job. And by really great job, I mean, she was making $11 an hour. But but again, we're talking 18-year-old Kaitlin or like, 20-year-old Kaitlin. And so I wanted to get in with her. I was like, this is it. This is my ticket. Again, this is $11 an hour. So I was like, I'm trying to get in there. So I did, but the only way to get in the job was to go through a temp service. You had to do 90 days in the temp service. So through my 90 days, like it was going great. There was absolutely no doubt in my mind that I was going to get this job. Come the end of my 90 days, they don't have a position for me. And so keep in mind this, I'm 28 now. When I was 20, jobs were not like they were nowadays. People were fighting for jobs. Like I was working with people's like aunts, uncles, grandmas, like everyone and their brother was trying to get into, this job specifically, but jobs in general. So they weren't like as free as they are now. And so they didn't have a position open. They really wanted to, and they looked in all the different departments for me. It was at a factory manufacturing dental equipment, but they looked in all the different departments and just no position for me. So they were like, hey, we have to let you go right now, but as soon as a position comes open, we'll get you back in here for 90 days. Well, I couldn't afford to not work. And I had, for the first time in my life, put all my eggs in one basket with this, 11 an hour job. And so, I had nothing. I didn't have a job. I was kind of in school, but again, I was paying for school out of pocket. So if I couldn't afford, if I didn't have a job, I definitely couldn't afford to go to school that, semester. So that was another, heart-wrenching thing, is I couldn't go back to school because I lost the job. So that kind of put me into serving and bartending, which is where I also discovered that there was a lot of money. But no benefits, the schedule was awful. So that's where I really had to dive deep and figure out what is something that is going to have a decent schedule, benefits, because I was getting, 25. I was about to get kicked off my parents' insurance. Doomsday when that happened. But, life was really starting to hit me at that point. So I was like, I have to find something. And I ended up getting the job at 22 Exchange. My husband actually found the job for me. And from there, I just I don't know, light bulbs went off, like sparks, everything. I saw an industry that I could grow in, but that I could also use to my advantage for something like rental properties and, my own personal benefit in the end. So that's really what how I guess I would say I got into it. But throughout the whole process, I would just say I really improved my mindset about money. So I started learning about it. I wasn't as scared of it anymore. So it was really just getting over that like fear of money from the beginning, from my childhood, where it was just kind of like, wasn't there, never going to be there, to hey, it's there, it's possible, and you can most definitely get some.
And the fear of money is a very real thing because it's not talked about in households. It's not talked about in school. And that ties directly into our mission at FLI. But some people are too scared of it to the point where they don't even want to learn about it. They don't even want to try to dive deeper into it to figure out, hey, it's actually not that scary and it's actually kind of simple. So
Exactly.
phenomenal answer on your beginnings. Now let's dive into your why for the future.
Yeah, why for the future? Kind of also relates back to my beginnings. Growing up, not something I think about often until coming on this podcast, but growing up, my family actually endured like a kind of traumatic event. When I was in kindergarten, my dad actually broke his neck on the job. And because he broke his neck, he wasn't able to work. So that turned my mom into, the sole provider of a family of four. So, and she didn't have a college degree. So she just had kind of, your run of the mill full-time job. I think she was maybe making like $13, $14 an hour. So she would work multiple minimum wage jobs, to kind of make up for that extra income from my dad not being able to work. So because of that, I never saw my mom growing up. Like when I say she left the house at 5:30 in the morning to get to work at 6, I think she left her day job at 2:30, went to her next job, and this woman worked until 11 o'clock at night. And she did this 6 days a week. And she would typically work like a half day on Sunday, like to the point, I don't know how this woman did what she did. So forever grateful. And she definitely instilled that like work ethic and mindset into me, which was, a blessing and a curse at first, because at first, I kind of fell into that minimum wage dead end lifestyle. But then again, just kind of opening my mindset, really getting over that fear of like, I'm never going to have money, to, okay, if I can visualize myself with it, I can make anything happen. So really getting to that point. But back to the why, I didn't want to do that. I did not want my life to turn into that. I want to spend time with my family, especially, my parents are getting older. I don't want it to be too late before I get to enjoy my time with them. So, and, same with my husband, same with his family. I would say that's really both of our whys, is because we just want that quality time with our family.
So it sounds like too, your mom was pushed into a situation where she had to do whatever it takes to help you guys get by. And it seems like you've taken on that mindset as well, but in a little bit of a different way, in doing whatever it takes to make sure that you are able to be there for your family and then for your husband's family as well. So it's a nice little, I guess, transition from what your mom did and the blood, sweat, and tears that she put in to now using that same type of mindset.
Oh, definitely. Yeah, it's, you can look at it all different ways. I don't like to look back on things in any sort of negative way. Everything is a learning experience to me. And, if it wasn't, then I just kind of forget about it. So I'm not one to really harp on like the bad times or, anything of that nature. But I will say I'm very grateful that I did learn that from her and that we did go through it, because now, you see people that kind of, had that privilege, and you're like, man, what the heck is this person doing? Or man, they had so many opportunities and they just kind of let it pass by, or, what the heck is this? They just can't understand how someone's acting the way they do. And now I see opportunities and I latch on like it's a, baton to attract me, and I take off like there's, no one behind me. So I'm grateful for that opportunity to see opportunities. Whereas, had I not went through that, maybe I would miss them.
And that sounds like the glass half full type of mindset. And also there's a quote just popped into my mind when you're saying that, and it's everything's going to work out in the end. And if it doesn't work out, that means it's not the end. So
Exactly.
that ties into that glass half full mindset, and the fact that you see the opportunities and you know that if you take an opportunity, it doesn't work out, it's not the end. You're going to have another chance to bounce back and try something different. And it's that constant trial and error, which as long as you don't give up, good things are going to happen.
Exactly. When you said that popped in my mind, and I'm probably going to mess it up because I don't have it in front of me. But one of my favorite quotes is, luck is when opportunity meets preparation. And when I saw that, I was like, oh my God, I am always going to be prepared for anything. So, it's just that whole, if you stay ready, you don't have to get ready mentality. And obviously you're never going to be ready for everything, but I would say more so if you're open to be ready for anything, you just have to be open to, being able to do something or that opportunity. If you shut it down, then there's no chance it'll ever happen. So it's just, if you're open for it, then you'll make it happen.
You're 100% correct. And you did not butcher the quote. Very good job.
Okay.
You hit the nail on the head. So
I need to put that on my wall or something.
Exactly. 100%. Put that above your computer. But as we kind of wind down here, I have one more question I want to get before we get to our wrap-up questions. So in terms of your future rental property vision, having worked in large multifamily, do you see yourself sticking with that or going into the single family route?
I definitely see myself going the single family route, just because large property management is a great learning tool by all means. You learn, just at a quicker scale, I would say, because instead of, with smaller rental properties, maybe you have, say, 10 rental properties. Not so much is going to happen with 10 people over time, but a lot is going to happen with 308 people over time. So even, just on the maintenance side and all, just all types of situations, be from lease breaks to, neighbor disputes, which again, probably not so much with a single family home. Working in large scale management just kind of brings out the perks that I see in single family management. And just too, overall, I'm a more personable person. So with 308 people, I have people coming in and I've never even met them. They lived at my property for, 3 years now or 10 years now. And they're coming in and they're like, hey, hi, who are you? And I'm like, hi, I'm the property manager. Who are you? And it's like, oh, I've lived here forever. And I'm like, you must be a good tenant because I've never seen you. So with single family management, I just feel, not that you want to get too involved with your residents, but you can just be a little more personable for them. Just do, a little bit nicer things, like maybe give them a gift basket or, things of that nature, where again, with large scale management, you really have to be fair across the board because everything can come across as, favoritism or, discrimination or just all types of fair housing things.
Yep. And that's a good thing that you mentioned too, is like giving a tenant a gift is much easier if you have 10 properties and maybe you like 3 of your tenants a lot. So you say, hey, I'm going to give these 3 tenants a gift, but not the other 7 tenants. And they'll never find out as long as they're not friends. So like
Exactly.
stuff like that. There's little minor intricacies that I do agree that make the single family or even the smaller multifamily a more comfortable route. Now, if you get into the large multifamily, that's where you can get into commercial lending, and that's where you can get into large cap rates. And it's a whole different ballgame in terms of the lending standards and how you can actually get loans for a property. But that's a conversation for another day. But
Yeah.
I guess I want you to go on the record here and I guess speak it into existence.
Yes.
One of your goals for your real estate within the next year.
Ooh, so for my real estate in the next year, and I'm all about speaking into existence. Oh man, we should have touched on law of manifestation. I love it.
Mhm.
But I would say, so for the next year, I am going to obtain my first rental property. That will be for, long-term rental. And I will, see the second part, I don't want to say too much. But I am going to be a part of my own property management company, and that is going to take off.
I love it. I agree completely. And we'll circle back in November 2023 and we'll have
Yeah,
you back on the show to make sure that you actually accomplish this. And you'll
yeah,
probably end up having like 2 or 3 properties because you're gonna get the first one, they'll be like, this is so much fun, let's keep doing it. So
exactly.
well, as we move to the end here, I mean, this has been a phenomenal episode, and you've provided a lot of value, so I appreciate that a lot.
Of
Now,
course.
we have 4 questions that we ask every guest at the end of every episode, and this is something you want to answer quickly. First thing that comes to your head. Now, we already kind of dove into your goal for the next year, real estate wise, but what is your number one goal for 2023?
Ooh, so personal, like personal goal.
It it can be if it's the real estate one, then that's fine. But if any goal, personal or business, anything like that.
So personal goal for 2023 is run a half marathon in under 2 hours.
Okay.
Under 2 hours.
Bravo. Can't wait to hear about that as well. Now,
Ready.
question number 2. If you had to pick one book that has made a great impact on your life, whether it's real estate, business, finances, or none of those, what would it be?
I'm gonna cheat a little bit because there are two personal ones. The first one though is the Four Agreements. If you've never heard of it, definitely Google it, check it out. It's so awesome. The Four Agreements. It just helped with my mindset shift, I would say. So yeah, that's definitely it. And then cheating. The finance side, I would say the Rich Dad Poor Dad series. The
Mm,
first book is a great start. It's not overwhelming. It's easy to understand. And I think it'll launch a lot of interest for people into more finance reading.
yep. Great answers as well. I have not heard of the first book, but the Rich Dad series is top of my list as well. So, question number 3. If any of our listeners want to get in contact with you to ask you a question, maybe go tour your apartment, how can they reach out to you?
Yes. So if you would like to tour one of my apartments, reach out to me. I work at Fairway Park Apartments out in Copley, Ohio. We are right past the Planet Fitness and Home Depot. Can't miss us. But Fairway Park Apartments, check us out online. You can, submit us a little prospect thing through there, or you can email us at the word is info, just, word info at livefairwaypark.com, and we will be there to answer any question you need.
Perfect. Yep, go check them out. They're very nice apartments
They are.
and have a great management and maintenance team. And
Yes.
then the last question, which was actually suggested to us by our last guest, shout out to Madison. And so we're going to continue adding this on to every episode. If you had to recommend one guest to have on on this podcast, who would it be?
Ooh, that is a good question. One guest, I would say, does it have to be a specific person or like a type of person?
I think the way that she envisioned it was a specific person, but if you have a type of person, that's fine too.
So I would say, and I'm a little biased because my husband was a student athlete. I would say somebody that is kind of a student athlete just to see, because I would love to see the change from how my husband was a student athlete. They had a set amount that they made every month. And I know things have changed a little bit. So I'm wondering if, their mindset would be a little bit different than his was when he was in college.
Okay, that's something I'd never thought of. So great suggestion. I have a few people in mind as well. So thank you for that.
So I'm
And
like, I
then,
don't know a specific person, but that type of person would be awesome.
absolutely, yeah, thank you. So as we wrap up here, I want to give you a chance to kind of give a final closing comments monologue. Just anything that you wanted to talk about that we didn't cover, or any words of wisdom that you have for our listeners. Now is your chance.
Yeah, we kind of touched on it a little bit, the speaking it into existence. I would say one of the things, not just specifically finance related, that I really started looking into, but just kind of a common theme that I found through the books and, just the podcasts and anything like that, that I was listening to, was law of attraction. And just that is something I would say, if you haven't already, definitely dive a little deeper or just look into it in general, because that has truly helped me immensely. I saw myself having any money in the bank to now, I see myself with 100,000 in the bank, or I see myself with that 500,000. Like, and it's just, I know it's going to happen. It might not happen as soon as I would like it to, but that's where, trusting in divine timing and all that comes into play. But just law of attraction. And if you can see it, you are more than capable of doing it. But it's when you can't see yourself doing something that you're going to be held back. Because if your mind is already telling you that you can't do something, there's never going to be enough momentum to make you do it.
Beautiful, brilliant. We'll make sure to clip that out and throw it on our Instagram reels as well. So thank you for that, and I'm sure our listeners appreciate it as well. So overall, we appreciate you joining us on this episode. Thank you for taking the time to give us all this wonderful wisdom and to learn about not only your experiences but what the future holds for Kaitlin. So thank you. We can't wait to come back in a year when you have multiple rental properties, property management companies rolling good, and all the great things that are going to come your way in 2023 and during this holiday season. So from the bottom of my heart and everyone at FLI, thank you, Kaitlin.
No, thank you so much. Thank you definitely for having me, and good luck to you and, the fellow FLI team and all of your listeners, and just good things to come in 2023. Good things to come.
Absolutely. Thank you. So this has been another episode of On the Fly, a Financial Literacy Institute podcast. We'll catch you next time.